Hi, my name is John Faulkner. I'm the host of the Smarter Systems Better Care podcast, and I'm joined today with Michael Pottern. Michael Pottern, he is the founder of Mindwave and Denver Zenden, and as he explores the frontiers of holistic healing, blending ancient wisdom with modern technology to unlock the mind's potential and growing from there. So thank you for joining us today, Michael. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Just to get us started, where are you calling from today?
Uh, Calling in from Boulder, Colorado, actually, in this moment. Usually I'm in Denver, but today I have a bunch of meetings up here, so I get to spend a little more time in nature. I'm actually the founder of a clinic down in Denver that we are Colorado's first sober psychedelic clinic. So we actually use light, sound, vibration, and frequency to create awe-inspiring experiences that help reset the nervous system and repattern the mind. It's been a very interesting 2.5 years since we launched. So I wear many hats, as I think most entrepreneurs do. But I am moving into that next phase of really starting to do more outreach because I see where this can empower so many different verticals that are looking to support their clients better, looking for multimodal approaches to wellness, and I think we fit right in there.
Absolutely. And for our previous conversation before we got on this one, you had a lot of moving parts, and you're starting to make a really noticeable impact on people that are using your products. So, and then as far as like, what does your typical day look like when you're working through your business and thinking about things? How does that progress through the day?
Sure. So I would say that there's three parts to what we're doing. There is, the brick and mortar, which is the Denver Zen Den. That is where
Yeah,
we, have kind of more of our dojo, and we try out different technologies and we weave in different music and thematic experiences so we can see what might resonate for different personas. And we have a very strong following. We've won some awards last year and continue to
excellent.
do some really great collaborations throughout not only
Yeah,
Colorado, but throughout the nation. And so we're at a place that will consume, I'd say, a third of my time. And we have other guides that also support the clients that are coming in. Then I also have, I think, what is more the outreach, because we are in such a novel place of something new emerging, and I think we're really at the beginning of a 30-year pathway of what can stroboscopic light do, what can vibroacoustic therapy do, what can frequencies do when utilized in ways that meet people not only in the moments of reaction, but actually just to set the container and create coherence. And so we're at a beautiful place that um I'm exploring lots of different pathways. That's about a third of my time. And then the other third is we actually created a Mindwave business in a box solution for different wellness centers and clinics and facilitators and coaches that we launched in December. And so usually I'm talking to inbound curiosity around that.
yeah, excellent. And then I heard you may be working on a solution with these things that you're working on to be more proactive with the approach to maybe outreach to people before having like a reactionary solution in the moment, right? That's kind of what it sounds like. Maybe you're treating something that's happening, but they can continue treatments to prevent things from happening in the future, potentially, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing, right?
Yeah, so we're really good at pattern interruption. So that's a nice way to kind of think about it. So just to give context, what the experience actually is we're weaving together three technologies that have this kind of profound effect. So you have a vibroacoustic bed, our Soma bed, and it has 10 different transducers underneath it. So if you're listening to a wave, you'll actually feel that move through the body. Then we have a haptic vest, so that's a full 360 can vibrational experience then. But then the main, I'd say, tool that we utilize is the stroboscopic light. So it's a very high-end LED light system. But when the client's eyes are closed and the stroboscopic light is producing a certain frequency, the brain does three things. One, it gets really curious about what's going on, so it'll actually entrain into those different frequencies. And there's still a lot of exploration with that. MIT is looking at 40 hertz gamma. There's some interesting things that are starting to be looked at with what happens with the brain. But then because the brain's not getting image, it actually comes up with colors and patterns that are very awe-inspiring. So hence why we call it a sober psychedelic clinic here in Colorado. But really at the end of the day, we're a nervous system regulation tool. We're pushing a lot of information through the computer system and allowing the defrag to happen in a way that just removes any of that stagnant energy or things that are more in the fascia. And then that's the third thing I think is the most important is you're distracting that flight or fight system. So then that vibroacoustic therapy can actually penetrate down into the fascia and really meet people where they're at, and it's been joy and bliss, and we hear all the good things afterwards.
That's excellent. And it sounds like you're definitely making an impact in that little area of the world because you're treating it in the moment, you're being proactive about it. And then you have steps where you're recognizing basically a wider spread issue of like the body being overwhelmed with like alerts and inputs into their brain, and their body is just freaking out, essentially, is like the crude way to say it.
Well, I love that. And we actually have coined the term somatic hygiene. So just like brushing your teeth, you really should be attuning to your nervous system or your energetic system on a regular basis. And that also includes the mind. It's not just the body. So it is the full connection, and that builds resilience. And I think moving into a world that has a lot more unknowns and rapid accelerations, we need to remain agile and also not rely on just what we already knew. What don't I know today?
Exactly. And then as far as like kind of shifting to my next questions, what kind of major shifts are you seeing in your own industry right now in this area?
So I think, Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, really is the signal with a lot that's unfolding because post-pandemic, people recognize that there's something off. There's something that isn't, feeling complete. They're lonely. There's isolation. There's, just overwhelm from the news and the chaos, and and we continue to go down that path. So I'm seeing in so many verticals not only veterans but CEOs and athletes, moms. I would say predominantly, we're seeing moms come in saying, hey, I just need a little support. So it's kind of like, how do we help the helpers in a way? And I think hopefully I live in a world that everyone's a helper and we're all
Yeah.
pitching in those ways that we all need a little tending to. And sometimes that's just to be reminded that we're whole and where the mind can see the mind. And that's what's beautiful about especially this type of novel, non-ordinary experience.
Yeah, it gives them, imagine they see it as an outlet, something to look forward to help them kind of, center themselves and come back to, I'm in a good place. So, yeah, I can see why that would be very impactful. People, once they hear about it, and understand how it works.
Well, and then we have over 180 different experiences, so there's really something for everybody. There's
Yeah, that's
underwater
a lot.
adventures with whales or dolphins, and there's outer space, or there's thematic, like more breath work or releasing some guilt or grief. There's, something for everybody. So that's what I think is most exciting is there's always new developments. It's not a static technology. Everything should be more jazzy.
Yeah, exactly. I like that, jazzy. And then like and just looking at the trend again, like how has this impacted like your business or your growth strategy for like how you adjust to things?
So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I had a pretty large rental brokerage in Chicago for a number of years, and I've also been a part of a couple of other startups that have really shown me, I think, how to grow things in a concentric way. And what I'm seeing now is a acceleration of adoption of wellness as both a real estate, kind of function, meaning that a lot of commercial buildings are looking to bring wellness in because it's kind of like an anchor
Yeah.
tenant and it draws a lot of attention. We're seeing, a much more high-end client that is looking for not only to fix things, but to stay ahead of things, as we've been
Yeah.
talking about. So there's just a lot of ways that that's not just something that you need to go to somewhere. There's also tools and apps and things like that that obviously bring that into your own home. And then there's also the community side. I think people want to do this stuff together, and so that's a really beautiful thing. I think in this renaissance that I'm seeing of this actually not being just both as a practitioner or a coach or a wellness, center owner, we're all kind of in the same collaborative space now, and that actually gets a lot more exciting because there's trust and there's there's always something new, and I think that's what people are craving.
Yeah, and it sounded like you were talking about too, like getting into the workspace of where people are, like in some shape or form, be part of that wellness strategy or that enterprise strategy to create wellness as a whole is like a value. So I really like that because I can imagine if maybe you're having a rough day at work or something, you need to go in there and try something different to reset, right? So that might be like a good outlet. So
And we even have a technology that's just a wearable that you can, it's a personal product that, in just 10 minutes, literally you can just kind of reset the system and be like, okay, hold on. And, maybe before a big meeting or a talk or just any type of, team engagement, it just creates more empathy for both yourself and for others. And I think then, and there's openness to, thinking differently, which is, I think, the name of the game.
yeah, absolutely. And then as far as like you're like what you are working through now, like what's working well for you right now? And then like what's been frustrating that you're having to deal with? Curious to hear those perspectives.
So, nervous system regulation is going to continue to become a major thing. And like you said, we're just in a sensory overload world where we're inundated not only with the senses, but with the internal emotions and things that we're still, kind of
Yeah.
learning to better operate with. So, the nice thing is that, we're talking to not only the categories I've mentioned, but some pretty large conferences, especially in Europe, around trauma with, just some of the top people in the game. And if we're going to be woven in as a activation so people can actually experience this stuff and like I think what your audience might hopefully do is start to explore how could this actually help my client go a little bit better into into treatment? How could they be a little bit more easeful, regulated? Or how could this complement afterwards? As you said, it's a pull forward. It gets people excited, so they're willing to probably do a little extra journaling or a little bit extra note taking. That's kind of one of the jazz hands I like to think that we have.
I like that.
But
I like that jazz hands.
the difficulty, of course, is that, this is new technology. So people are like, I love this. How do I experience it? And so coordinating and figuring out how people can do that is also an interesting thing. Luckily, there is an app out there called Luminate. It's a free app that uses the flashlight on the phone, so it's an introductory way to start to explore even just what stroboscopic light is. Of course, vibration. We've all kind of experienced that Apollo device. Though there's some really great wearables and things out there, but then when you people really go into what is next, and then there's a full system set up that not only for a business, but people are bringing it into their homes.
Excellent. So you have different solutions for them and different experiences, which is really nice. So people can customize things or make it unique to an individual, which is great. Looking at like metrics too, are you using metrics today to kind of help you focus on improving, or how do you measure that today when you're working through your business?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because, it is a emerging space. So
Yeah,
there was a lot of community education that initially needed to happen, but luckily we've done that, and now I think people can even just point to us and understand, okay, maybe you're not a replica of these guys, but I understand now how this looks works. It's just something
yeah,
that once it's out there, people understand a little bit more. I would say that our biggest thing is how to make this a part of a care pathway, not just a one-off experience. I would say that
right.
that's what most of the industry is like, check out this really cool experience. And that's nice. But when things can actually be layered in again, both to help compliance of other therapies and practices, as well as amplifying the value and uh, the integration of it. Because if the body's more regulated, of course, we're going to be able to absorb more of things. So we started off probably around 15-20% of recurring clients that were coming in on a monthly, if not more, basis. We're up to 45% now on that. So it's nice to see that continuing to grow where people are saying this is changing. And the more that I do it, the more I actually am seeing the true pattern shifts. And that's I think that's what we're really looking for is not just the reprieve, but how do we actually see these altered traits, not just altered states.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And then what are anecdotes that people are saying about the experience that maybe there's users that have been using it for a period of time? Like, what are things that they're saying when they come out of it? I'm curious to hear. I'm sure others are too.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things that's very ephemeral. So it's something that most people are like, oh, I got to tell like five people, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what are you gonna say? And they're like, well, I don't
Yeah.
know, but they need to do this, and I'm okay with that because that actually gives it the personal sovereignty that allows somebody to feel like this was special for me, this was
Yeah.
unique, and this wasn't just another thing that somebody's just trying to get me to do.
Yeah.
So joy and bliss literally are the two words I would say most people say, especially people
Yeah.
that have been really in it, just because they found that moment where they had 30 minutes or an hour and a half just to actually drop out and realign and maybe even take a new perspective. The other, you know, we do call our experience IMAX for the soul. So I think that's a good way of at least capturing a little bit of that magic without, having to understand too much. Because when the colors are coming from inside your head, it's all white light, but people will not believe that there wasn't colors all throughout the room, and it's just
Yeah.
flickering light. And again, it's something very natural, non-invasive, approachable. My parents come in, we have, as I said, such a range of a clientele that find very different aspects of it intriguing for them.
That's amazing. And then as far as like where you guys want to be like 6 to 12 months from now, what's your vision?
So we are in talks with a foundation that we would like to bring this into some first responder firehouses, police departments, start exploring where we can really actually get ahead of the impact that especially
Yeah.
those types of roles have. We've been doing monthly veterans retreats. We're now going to be a part of a detox center, and one of the technologies that they'll be using as one of their therapies. Be curious to see where this can go in specific niches where, again, creating opportunity for people to gain perspective not only of life, but just reminding themselves of who they are and what they're capable of can provide something for a lot of different categories and verticals. So I'm very open. We've created a great foundation and templates, and that's all part of the technology Mindwave stack, the business in a box. So there's a lot of ways that this is actually quite agile and can just be a wraparound. So to me, I'm looking for people that want to play jazz.
It sounds like you're looking for partnerships too, like, pairing up and finding people that truly believe in your vision and where you want to go. So,
Yeah.
yeah, excellent. And then if I always like to ask this question, if you had a magic wand today, what would be a major problem you would want to solve?
Yeah, of course, nervous system regulation, but to go deeper with that, it's about being seen. I think in life, people want to be witnessed,
Yeah.
and that's in the full spectrum of it. It's not only in our wins and our high highs, it's about being there and being reminded that we're okay, and we're not, even if we've done things that maybe we have some, shame or guilt around, that we can actually use that as a way to catalyze into a bigger version of yourself. And I find that that's, kind of the yin yang of life, is that there's growth on one side and then there's growth on the other side. And if you kind of get out of whack, we help hopefully remind that pendulum not to swing too far. And that's presence and anchoredness and being centered. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see more of.
Yeah, I think everyone can resonate with that feeling, just feeling more like it's centered at peace and then recognizing things are not always great, but you have a way to swing back into the center, like you said, and move forward.
Yeah, and just knowing where you are on the map, just knowing when you are out of alignment, that's half the battle. So it's not just the work to get it back, just noticing, hey, something's off, and then noticing that maybe other things are happening because of that initial feeling of how you're reacting or responding. So there's just a lot of interesting little mycelial network of how this all plays into just, as I said, I want more ease for people.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time today on the Smarter Systems Better Here podcast. I really appreciate you giving us your insights and like a new fresh look at, how to better center yourself, how to go through some very specific experiences through your services and product just to make people feel more at ease, more at peace, and have a better well-being. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean. And yeah, if anybody is curious, you are ever in Denver, come check us out at the Denver Zen Den.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, so people know where to follow up with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, John. This was a pleasure.